Does life have any meaning? I feel like we tend to overthink this question too much, which in the end doesn't really change anything. Ultimately, you can always derive something useful from every experience that happens to you if you're open to learning. I tend to look at life as this endless ladder, with every step of it containing a challenging experience of certain kind, where it is ultimately down to us to look at it a certain way and make conclusions. At times I find myself losing this perspective, and instead I start getting caught up in reminiscing, wishing that things would have worked out differently. We all need to be surrounded with the right people to feel wholesome, but at times life forces us to part with somebody who we thought truly mattered. And the hardest part is that even when your mind knows it's the way it had to be, your heart refuses to accept it. That's where so much of our suffering comes from. Our very human, rebellious nature. Because we are self-aware, because we have choices, we also carry regret. We blame ourselves, others, or the circumstances around us. And negativity becomes the default because it's hard to see through the veil of pain. But what if there was a meaning to all this? Have you ever thought what would become of you without all these unpleasant, yet very deep human emotions of sadness, longing, anxiety, and so on? Would art, love, or passion burn as deeply without being touched by pain? Some of the greatest drives to create, to change, come from our darkest moments. I really believe the key to a fulfilled life lies in noticing the small things, the everyday blessings we usually tend to overlook. Too often, we only realize how precious something was once it's already gone. For the past couple of weeks, I've been having something one might call a hard time. I felt really nostalgic for certain experiences in my life, and I've been missing certain people. I just wanted their presence by my side. At some point, it started feeling like life was against me. Everything was against me. The universe was against me. And I simply didn't understand what was the point of life giving me all of those lessons, all of those situations where I truly felt like the only thing I gained from it was suffering. I did not understand that. And not understanding something in life often leads to agitation. So I started really being annoyed with my day-to-day life. I had a lot of pressure at work and I hardly got outside, which, as you can imagine, contributed to that feeling of confinement. And so at one point I said to myself that I need to get out and I need to see this world once again. I need to surround myself with the people I love, with the people I truly appreciate. And I also need to be by myself, but in the nature, in order to reflect. So one evening, I went to a really magical place here in London, which is called Primrose Hill, and which I absolutely love. And this is, as you can imagine, a hill with the views on the city skyline. I went there and deep realization came to my mind. I thought, what would I be? What would I be without those unpleasant experiences? Without that pain that I've experienced? What would I be? Would I be the same person? Would I have the same goals, aspirations, and ambitions? And what have I gained from all of those unpleasant experiences? A lot of us struggle to be grateful in moments of struggle. When we are facing something unpleasant, when we are facing something that we don't necessarily want to deal with, of course, it gets really hard to be grateful. How can we be grateful for the suffering, for the pain that we are experiencing? And I feel like oftentimes we forget to ask ourselves the fundamental question, what has this suffering led me to? Let me give you an analogy. I tend to think of this life as a ladder. Imagine a ladder. You have, say, 500 stairs, and every stair is a lesson from life. To step on another stair and to get higher in life, you need to experience something unpleasant. You need to get out of your comfort zone, and you need to allow life to push you out of your comfort zone. The funny thing is, some people get stuck at, say, stage 4. They've only stepped 4 stairs in their life, and they get stuck, obsessing over that experience, and they question, why did it happen to me? The world is so unfair, this life is so unfair, I am such a victim, do I deserve this? I've been a kind person to everybody, I've helped everybody around me, I've done everything in my power to be a kind person, and I've given so much to this world, and I have bought those all those things to that person and I've treated them with love and care and respect, and yet they left me and yet they cheated on me. Why did this happen? And they get stuck at this stage 4 until the rest of their life, not even unlocking half of their potential, not even unlocking 5% of their potential, because they could have reached that stair 500, but no, they did not allow themselves to let go and to be open to receiving. The thing is, openness to receiving in itself implies that we are ready to receive anything, be it a hard experience or an easy experience. We need unpleasant emotions to grow and learn. And this is not some woo-woo thing, this is not some self-help thing. In this talk, I'm going to prove it to you. The thing is, I've been missing certain people in my life, and that was my biggest struggle. I just felt like I needed to be around that specific person to feel good again, until I realized that the simple act of parting with that person and of not talking to that person again made me so much stronger. We become stronger in our moments of weakness, and we can transform the weakness into the strength. And I've realized that all of those unpleasant, as I labeled them, emotions, they have led me to becoming a much better person myself. I will give you an exercise. Imagine an unpleasant situation that is now bothering you. Let's say heartbreak is an example, okay? And then name me 5 unpleasant, as you label them, emotions that come with it. Let's think about it. For example, I will say sadness, depression, anxiety, fear, and disappointment. It could be anything else for you. I have just given you these emotions as an example. And now, try to link every emotion to a positive experience that you have gained from experiencing that emotion. And I know that it sounds a bit crazy, but trust me, in every unpleasant emotion, there is something that you have gained that has made your present a much better and sustainable place to be in. For example, the longing to be with someone leads to disappointment, or it leads to jealousy of that person not wanting to be with you. We tend to view these emotions as something negative, as something crazy, and something that you should not experience, and therefore people suppress a lot of things, right? But if we instead try to channel gratitude when experiencing those emotions, which sounds insane, we would realize that a lot of positive things can be gained from those emotions. You can transform your longing to be with someone into the strength that you have in being alone. You can then realize that by being alone and by being by yourself, you're constantly pushing yourself out of the comfort zone until you grow comfortable with being yourself. And then in itself, the quality of being comfortable in your own company is the defining quality of a strong person. A strong person can always be by themselves, and a strong person is not codependent on anybody to sustain their well-being and to regulate their mood swings. This is only one of the examples that I've realized. But also, the interesting thing that came to my mind is that in a lot of times, pain pushes us to create. And create not out of lack, but simply because pain in itself is something that opens us up to gratitude. And all of this sounds like really paradoxical and oxymoronic, so let me delve into it and explain to you what I mean. A lot of times when everything is going well, we forget to appreciate, or we simply do not appreciate and stay grateful to the extent that we need to stay grateful to. And you might ask me, how do you define this extent and what is this extent that you're talking about? I'm simply speaking in hypothetical terms, but I think that we need to be grateful almost all of the time in our life, no matter what happens. When we feel pain or when we suffer, we realize, or we are reminded once again, that everybody is a part of this collective experience. We are all a part of the same being, of the same entity, and we are all the same. We are all fundamentally the same. It doesn't matter how different you look to one another. It doesn't matter that you have different goals or aspirations. All of these things are just the defining traits of the physical three-dimensional reality. On a deeper level, we are all the same, and we all strive and long for the same things, which is love and acceptance. And so this makes us all a part of the same species. And by being reminded of this whole ecosystem, where each of us is a tiny inhabitant of this huge and vast environment and space, we are pushed to create out of pain, and we are pushed to stay grateful. Just try to remember your moments of weakness. Try to remember that heartbreak that you've experienced. The first few weeks you might have felt really depressed and sad, but then what did you do after that? Most likely you went out there and you realized something about yourself. You realized that you want to start that business, or maybe on a smaller scale, you realize that you want to get into reading, you want to get into bike riding, you want to get into swimming. Like, you remember things about yourself. You remember things that defined you as a person, as an individual. And yet you were reminded that you are also a part of a collective group, that we all suffer. And from this suffering come the fundamental realizations of what we are supposed to be doing in life and of how we can transform our life and make this world a better place. And so when I was experiencing pain, I got reminded that everyone who I see on the street, they're all dealing with some stuff. And this realization in itself is so simple. And exactly, I'm not gonna dedicate the 40 or 50 minutes of this podcast to this realization. It's like so simple. But we forget this. We forget that everybody on earth is going through something, and everybody has their issues and everybody has their problems. It simply unlocked so much compassion and empathy inside me that I felt grateful. I just felt grateful to be able to experience, to be able to feel, because it made me feel so human and it made me feel so alive. And that reminded me that in my pain, there is a deep desire to help others. There is a deep desire to share it with the world, but instead of whining on about this, offer the world the solutions. Because I know for a fact that people will relate, and I know that all of us have experienced, for example, heartbreak since I started talking about this. And all of us can learn something from it. And if we remind each other that everybody is going through this experience of dealing with a certain issue, we remember that we are all fundamentally the same. And it all leads to gratitude, the key to fulfillment and abundance. I was recently introduced to consuming something known as ceremonial grade cacao. And this is not a drug, but surprisingly, it has astounding and mind-blowing effects on the way we operate on a day-to-day basis. And by consuming it regularly, maybe once a week, and I did it maybe like 4 times, it sort of shifted something in my thinking. But first of all, let me tell you a bit about the history of this cacao. This cacao was first discovered among Mesoamerican civilizations, at least that's the information that I found on Wikipedia, among the tribes of Maya and Aztec. Maya saw the cacao as something divine, as the food of gods. And Aztecs in turn used it in sacred contexts in order to manifest, in order to set the intention. Well, of course, the term manifesting didn't exist back then, but in order to set intention and in order to feel this pleasant emotion of gratitude no matter what happened in life. And yes, this is exactly the effect that this pure cacao has on you. It opens up your heart. Basically, what I mean by opening your heart, if we are to explain it through psychology and science, it means that cacao, it has certain compounds to it that activates your parasympathetic branch of the nervous system. We have sympathetic branch and parasympathetic branch. Sympathetic branch is responsible for regulating the active bodily functions, such as like the state of alertness, increasing your heart rates, and so on. Parasympathetic branch of the central nervous system does the complete opposite. It calms you down and it regulates all of this anxiety in your body. It reminds you that you're safe, you're loved, and everything is good, everything is well. Also, the consumption of cacao is linked to an activity in brain regions that are responsible for empathy, for our ability to feel compassion towards others and towards the world itself. It affects the area of the brain called amygdala, which is responsible for alerting you of the danger that is present in your environment. And previously, our ancestors really relied on the amygdala itself in order to alert them whenever there was the danger in their surroundings. So it affects amygdala and also hippocampus in ways which also calm you down and make you feel grateful instead of being alert, anxious, and operating from the mindset of lack. Lastly, cacao also releases oxytocin, which I'm sure, as we all know, is known as love hormone. This exactly contributes to this feeling of gratitude and makes you feel this incessant love and passion towards being alive. Cacao has this stimulant called theobromine, which increases your heart rate and blood flow without the jitteriness of caffeine. You can think of it as something that caffeine has. It's only that it doesn't give you this anxiety. Theobromine is responsible for creating this open state of alertness, yet without anxiety, which some of us classify as something heart opening in spiritual concepts. And now that I've discussed all of this scientifically, I would say that there are many advantages to consuming ceremonial grade cacao. And luckily enough for me, I found a person in London who sources it from Colombia. And again, it's not a drug, but every time I did the ceremony, and I did it with friends and by myself, I would put on like my favorite playlist with a specific type of music that doesn't really involve any lyrics and which makes me think. And I would set an intention. And this intention would put me in a state where I felt so grateful in the present moment, despite not really having that thing that I put the intention for. The way it works in cacao rituals is that you set an intention, and it basically means that you think about any goal that you want to achieve. Let's pick a simplest example. You want to buy a house in a specific area of your city. I would say I want to buy a house in Hampstead. This is an area of London. And so I imagine this state in which I am, where I already own the house and where I already feel secure with having that house. And then I feel the gratitude in the present despite not having that house. And the fact of it all is, the magic of cacao rituals isn't really rooted in imagining those things and craving to have them and then saying to yourself that until I have that thing, I will be so unhappy and I will be working so hard and I will not care about anything in my life. Like, I don't really agree with those people who say that you need to lock the door and throw away the key and just like spend 5 years of your time in your house grinding, forget about everything. I think this is a bit of a waste of time. Then you do not let yourself experience the outer world, and then where is the gratitude supposed to come from? So the point of these rituals is to remind you that you do not need the material things, or you do not need the things to be manifested in this three-dimensional space in order to feel whole or grateful. We can summon every emotion by simply thinking about it and by having the right methods to turn into this particular state that we want to experience. And so exactly, it's not hard to guess what comes after. When you have already allowed yourself to experience all of those emotions that would supposedly come with you having that experience, you no longer care if you will experience that or will not experience that. Because the main thing lies in emotional control, in emotional agency. And so once you've already received all of those pleasant emotions by simply being in the present moment, you realize that in fact, you don't need to chase anything. You don't need to chase anything in life. You don't need to run for anything. You don't need to rush. There is no time and there is no rush for anything. You are just simply present. And this is your biggest gift. I am an English literature student and exactly I read a lot. And so currently I am reading Brothers Karamazov. Well, it's a Russian version by Dostoevsky. And Dostoevsky is like one of my favorite authors. I love the way he writes the characters. I love how he creates those settings and those situations where a lot of characters are put in one space and then they have this psychological debate about a certain issue. He is a great psychologist. Dostoevsky studied humans a lot and he spent a lot of time in solitude simply thinking about the human nature and then putting it all into his characters. I don't care about what type of person he was. I am simply going to discuss a couple of characters from this book. I was reading this book. So this character of a woman, she is engaged to marry a man who she thinks she really loves. And we have a family of 3 brothers. One of those brothers is really virtuous and he helps everybody, and let's leave him out. He's not going to be in this simple story. And then there are 2 other brothers. There is this brother Dmitry and there is this brother Ivan. This woman loves this brother Dmitry, and then this brother Ivan loves this woman. Okay? So again, she's in love with Dmitry, and then Ivan is in love with her. This is like a love triangle. And so this brother Dmitry behaves in a really insulting way towards this woman. He cheats on her and he doesn't really care about her. But anyway, she's presented first as this virtuous character. Now, I would like to discuss the psychology of this woman. She is so attached to this Dmitry because she once told herself that she loves him, that she can never leave him. And at some point, when Dmitry cheats on her, she vows for the rest of her life to be loyal to him. And she vows to allow him to leave, and yet she expects him to come back. She is sure that Dmitry will come back, begging her to accept him. And also, one of the points of her life is to spy on Dmitry, is to always try to control his life in some sort of way and expect this moment when he comes back. She says that she will be the most loyal relative, the most loving sister to him. And when he comes back, she will support him forever until the rest of her life. And that is the fundamental point of life of this woman. She lives waiting for this man to come back, while there is another brother in love with her, Ivan, loving her. And I haven't finished this book, so if I say something wrong, I'm sorry. But I think in some way she loves this Ivan brother who loves her, and they could have had an amazing relationship. But the thing is, she once convinced herself that she loves Dmitry, And now she's so attached to that idea of him coming back that her ego is not letting her to let go of Dmitry and just simply settle for somebody who already loves her. Not even settle for somebody, but just have a perfect life with somebody who will love her forever and have a healthy relationship. Another character in this book tells her at some point that, you know what, if Dmitry changes, if he comes back and if he turns out to be this great guy who will never cheat on you again, you will reject him. You will not accept him, in fact. And that is really interesting. That got me thinking a lot. Ego is the problem in a lot of cases in our life. We create these ideals of people in our head that they will come back certainly because I'm a virtuous person. Oh, they have to come back. Like I have to get a revenge on them. Oh, they will come back. They will come back and they will understand what a good person I am, what a great person I am. And you know what? I'll be giving all of my money to all of those charities as she does it. But she does it, this character of a woman, she does it not because she's virtuous, but because she has this ego that tells her that you need to be virtuous in order to prove to that guy. All of it is to prove to that guy that you are virtuous, that you are kind, that you have a big heart. Sometimes in life, we do virtuous acts just in order to prove to others that we are virtuous, which makes us even more selfish. If you want to explore this topic more, watch the film called Dogville. It's only my recommendation. Anyway, let's get back right into it. And a lot of times in life, our ego is the driving force of not letting ourselves succeed, not letting us get the thing that we are meant to get. Because we get attached to past concepts and we get attached to these ideals that we create in our head, that that person will come back, that we have to get them and only them. And by having such a narrow focus, we restrict all of the other opportunities that are supposed to come our way. We restrict ourselves from receiving the things that we are meant to receive when we let our ego control us. Because our ego is such a fragile thing. It will never want us to admit that, okay, I was wrong with that person when I chose that person because they treated me like shit and now I have to do a brave thing and to leave them. The thing is, a brave thing oftentimes is just leaving. It's just letting the situation slide. It's just letting go of the situation. The brave thing is not in persevering, in dedicating your life to a specific idea or person, in being loyal to them for no reason even though deep inside we know that they will never come back. The brave thing is to leave, is to let this thing be. Is to say, I leave it up to the world and to the universe to sort it out. This is no longer my concern. And I'm going to build something of my own. I'm going to build something based on my independence that I've gained. A lot of people make the mistake of waiting for that thing to come back to them and of thinking that it just has to be this way and no other way. And by thinking that it just has to be this way and there is no possible other way for it to happen. By only imagining that we are supposed to have this one thing in life, we will never receive anything but pain and suffering. Because life almost never happens the way we want it. And so by being grateful for the pain and for the suffering that we experience, we open ourselves up to the incessant pool of the possibilities available at our disposal. And from it, we can manifest anything. And now, I know that you're fuming, you're raging when I said the word manifesting, so let me try to explain it scientifically as well. This video is about gratitude, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about manifesting, but if I was to sum it up, I would say that manifesting in itself is intention setting. Intention setting activates something known as reticular activating system. This thing in your brain is responsible for filtering information and opportunities in your environment in order to match your focus. When we think of something and when we try to experience the feeling of already having that thing, and when we feel grateful for having that thing despite not having it in the physical world, but still experiencing all of those emotions, this emotionally charged imagery strengthens neural pathways via neuroplasticity. This simply means that your brain is able to rehearse the desired future as if it's already happening. The more neuroplasticity you have in your brain, the more you're able to adapt and shift your focus and to allow your brain to guide you, to allow your brain to select all those experiences unconsciously without you knowing them, and to lead you to those opportunities that would lead you to then getting that thing, achieving that goal. You see how it happens? Your subconscious mind filters your reality. This reticular activating system filters your reality and presents to you the opportunities, which kind of feels like magic, but which in itself is just the work of the brain. And then you see those opportunities, and in your head, deep down, you know that you're supposed to agree or disagree with that thing. You're supposed to either lean into that opportunity or reject it in accordance with the goal that you have set for yourself. And the more you practice this gratitude for having something that you are forcing yourself to imagine that you already have, the more neuroplasticity you gain. This intention setting practice, this manifesting, is not something magical. It is the gratitude that creates all of the magic, which in itself is just pure science. It is the selective perception of the world that you gain from it, and it is your brain filtering the reality and guiding you to those opportunities that would help you achieve that goal. There are 3 fundamental ways of operating in this life: chasing, attraction, and non-duality. Let's delve into each one of them, and I'm going to explain the meaning of each one of those levels and the usefulness of knowing about it. The first level, chasing. This in itself is kind of like a desire aversion loop. In this level, your dopamine system dominates. It always pushes you to view life through the lens of your future. If I don't have that thing, I am not happy. If I don't have that thing, I'll be anxious, depressed, and sad. I need to have that thing. I need to have that particular thing, that particular future. And only owning that house and only buying that expensive car will ever make me happy. There is absolutely no argument that such a state is unhealthy. This is the state that most of us are conditioned by the society to operate in. Most of us operate from the state of chasing, and we see the value in competition. And certainly there is value in competition. Certainly there is value in thinking about your future, in making a plan for achieving that thing and then achieving it. But think about all of those times when you've achieved something and then there was an emptiness that came from it. That was the indecision. That was the uncertainty that came with it. What am I supposed to do next in my life? I don't have any goals. I need to come up with something. I mean, I can't not live this life without a purpose. This is the experience of chasing, getting to a certain milestone, achieving it, then thinking about something else that we need to get, getting that thing, putting ourselves in this eternal state of hurry, of anxiety, and of competition. In Buddhist terms, this is something called samsara, the eternal cycle of craving, of desiring, of chasing. And Buddhism actively urges us to get rid of this desire. It tells us that the only way out of suffering is abandoning the desire. The next state is attraction. Here, you tend to feel more sort of relaxed. You know that you're in tune with your goal, and you know that you're on the right path. Maybe you've opened that business and it's going really well. And you know that, of course, along the way, you'll be facing issues and struggles, but you're also sure that it will work out eventually. You trust in the process and you trust in the universe to guide you. Here, the dopamine is still in play, but also serotonin and oxytocin start to balance it, which sort of puts you in this calm state. Still no gratitude, or maybe minimal gratitude, but at least you're not that anxious anymore. In attraction mode, your reticular activating system is in play. It is attracting all of those experiences and opportunities through the ways that I've previously explained. That's why you're leaning into the present. You're leaning into the very process of getting to that thing. Gratitude is heightened. You have more gratitude. Therefore, things flow easier and more naturally. You sort of forget about the whole hustle culture, or hurrying up or rushing. You know that you're on the right path, and you know that you worked hard in the past, which led you to sort of like fence yourself away from the world and just live in your own universe, and which didn't necessarily make you happy. So now you have this balance in your life, and you know that you are going to achieve this thing in the end, but you also remember about trusting the process. This is attraction. And now the state of a strange name, the state of non-duality. What the hell does that mean, Stas, and have you gone insane? This is the state where a boundary between the present you and the version of you who has already achieved that thing dissolves. There is no linearity. There is no time gap between you here and you out there. These two things merge, and you realize that your being is already whole. You are already wholesome in yourself by only wanting that thing. Because you know that the very idea of you that lives inside of you, the very spark, already makes you wholesome. You know what you want, and that is enough for you. You not only trust in the universe to guide you to that thing, it doesn't really matter to you anymore whether you will achieve that thing. You are perpetually content and grateful for the present moment. You trust so much in the present moment that you do not need anything anymore, because you realize that you live this life in order to be present, not in order to chase just like others do, not in order to operate from the state of lack, not in order to try to prove something to the world that that person will come back to you, that you're a virtuous human being. You're not trying to do anything. You're just doing, you're just putting action, but you're enjoying the process more than you know you will ever enjoy the result. This is non-duality. There are no boundaries here. This is the final point. This is something that is unachievable for most of the people, for most of the millionaires and billionaires. They have forgotten about this final point. They have forgotten about the present. They're driven by the competition, by seeking, by making, by earning. But there is the present moment. There is the sweetness of the now. And you realize that you're already wholesome right here and right now. That all of the things you once wanted, that all of the things that you thought you once needed in order to be happy, you do not need them anymore. You're here right now, and this is your most precious, biggest gift ever. Operating from the state of non-duality is really useful. This is the ultimate point of gratitude, and this is everything that I'm talking about. Here, you do not only realize that in fact, you don't really need that thing because you can experience the emotions at any given point. But have you noticed in life sometimes that once you let go of a certain thing, that once you think, I no longer care about whether I want to have this thing, about whether I want to achieve it, it comes to you naturally. This is your reticular activating system working in your brain. This is the selective perception. This is the science behind it working on your subconscious mind. While you are sitting here just putting in the action and you no longer care whether you achieve it. You just let the life guide you. And isn't that beautiful? How you can just lean into the present moment. Let your body be carried by the water as if you're just lying on the water on your back and you know that the water is salty. You know that there is enough salt percentage in this water to lift you up. You trust in this water to lift you up. You know that you will never drown. You know that you're never alone, that you're never forgotten, because there is this ultimate love that you have within you. There is this ultimate gratitude. When you operate from the present moment, and when you just look at all of your goals as mere additions to your already good enough present, there is no boundary for you anymore. You have so much love for this world that every day you wake up, your only goal is to give everything that you once received. And to experience the state of pure bliss. And this is pure bliss. This is literally something indescribable. Try a cacao ritual. Just find it in your city and do this. Try one of Joe Dispenza's meditations for energy centers or whatever it is. At least like these are the ones that I'm practicing. Just try to picture this thing and experience those emotions that come with you having that thing. And then compare your state of being before and after doing that. You will realize that the things in the material world are only mere additions to something that we already have inside us. If it sounds delusional to you, then let it sound delusional. But just repeat it to yourself until it resonates with you. Because once you're certain that you can operate from the present moment, and once for most of the time, you no longer see the need to chase or even to attract for this matter. Once you just realize that actually my present is so sweet and blissful, it is the key to freedom. And also try to remember that a lot of the things that you have right now are the things that you once wished for. One evening you sat there and you thought that would be great to have all of those things, and now you have them. Understand that this is a trap. Until you get out of this eternal cycle of wanting more and more, you will never be free. We desire things and then we get those things and then we forget that actually the things that we desire do come to us naturally once we forget about them mostly. Of course, we still need to put in action, but we don't need to worry how it will work out because life will guide us. And once we let life guide us, we can step on those stairs really fast, those 500 stairs that I put in as an analogy, as an example to you in the beginning of this talk. There are no boundaries to us anymore. Every pain, every suffering comes for a reason. And we know that for a fact. We don't even need to think about it. And we find the beauty in every pain, the beauty in every suffering, because we know that there is a greater purpose to each one of us, to help each other, to learn from each other, to learn from every experience, and to be reminded on a daily basis that we are wholesome in ourselves without having those things manifested in a material reality. Constantly striving to your goals and just forgetting about being grateful or being in the present and constantly living in the ideal future will most likely bring you to something known as paradox of arrival. It is when we get that thing and we realize that actually it's not what we wanted. We were seeking the feeling that was right there, hidden in the process. But every time we were in the process, we were so focused on that future, we were putting so many expectations on that future that we forgot that actually we could have benefited from that present. We could have benefited from being in the process and being grateful for it. And right now, when we have that thing, it turns out that our expectations most likely didn't match. We experienced that feeling for a couple of days and then it was gone. And now I'm empty. I don't know what my purpose in life is. But think about how much you can gain by simply being, by simply observing, by thinking of yourself as a conscious being, and by going on day by day without really craving things, operating from the state of lack, but instead operating from the state of pure love. And realizing that the only thing that you need to do here in this life is to just observe. We tend to think of ourselves as autonomous beings. We tend to think that we have so much control over our life, over the events that happen to us. But the thing is, we almost have control of nothing. We cannot control anything but our own reactions and our own state of being and our own perception of this world. So why don't we tune into the highest frequency possible? And why don't we just open ourselves up to the eternal love for this world and help others, if that is the only thing that we can control? And let other things just fall into place naturally. Trust me, it works. When you are in this state of non-duality, everything comes in the most magical ways. And you do not need to know how this works or why this works. Just lean in and trust the process. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to another positive episode of Blue Hour. Listen to video episodes exclusively on YouTube and Spotify, and audio episodes everywhere, wherever you want to listen. If you want to collaborate, please drop me an email at lutanstas320@gmail.com. You can also check out my portfolio for my work and hire me for any videography services that you may need from me. Link is in my bio, in my Instagram. I hope you enjoyed listening. If you agree or disagree with some points, if it was helpful or unhelpful, please drop me a DM at Blue Hour Pod on Instagram, or you can also find us on TikTok at Blue Hour Pod. Drop me a message if you want to discuss anything, any collaboration ideas, or if you just want to talk and discuss the topic that was discussed in this podcast or any of the other episodes, and I will be glad to chat. Honestly, I appreciate all of the feedback that I'm getting. I'm trying to improve constantly. And have a beautiful day, afternoon, or evening, or night. Have a beautiful everything. Have a beautiful life. And thank you so much. I'll see you next week. I'll speak to you next week. Bye bye.